Welcome to the Tennis-Worthy Podcast, brought to you by the International Tennis Hall of Fame. I'm Chris Bowers, and today we talk to one of the most elegant and aesthetically pleasing players to have graced the world's top tennis courts over the past 4 decades. He was not just an elegant player, but an eloquent speaker. He's the 1991 Wimbledon champion, Michael Stich.
If you work hard and you be persistent on and off court, you can achieve more things. And that's when I realized I can beat anyone in the world. In the locker room before the finals, I thought 5 seconds about being able to win the French Open. And those 5 seconds thinking that made me lose that match. The way to the top is extremely difficult. It's hard, and out of 1,000, maybe one is going to achieve something special. But if you don't try it, you're never going to find out. So just give it a shot.
Although Stich won just 1 Grand Slam singles title, the body of work that sits alongside his Wimbledon triumph includes winning the Wimbledon doubles, an Olympic doubles gold medal, 2 other Grand Slam singles finals, and being Germany's leading player in singles and doubles when it won the Davis Cup in 1993. That body of work earned him induction into the International Tennis Hall of Fame in 2018. And in April 2024, he was awarded his personal Hall of Fame ring at a special ceremony in Munich, where he'd gained valuable experience in his days as a young, aspiring professional. I spoke with him at the Iphitos Club in Munich on the day of his ring ceremony. Michael, what do you think it is that makes somebody a Hall of Famer?
That's a tough first question. Well, I think it's someone who obviously probably brings out the being a good ambassador for the game of tennis, on court and off court, obviously, but also managed his life afterwards being still involved in tennis and bringing across the right values of society and of humankind, so to say. And in that aspect, basically being a nice person.
How did you get into tennis? I mean, for much of your childhood, you played football and tennis. How did you get into it, and how did you manage the two?
Well, I got into tennis through the family. My parents played. They started late playing tennis. I have 2 older brothers who played tennis. So I was like 5, 6 years old, and you couldn't leave me at home alone. So I had to come and go to the tennis club as well. Got a racket, tennis ball, and played against the ball wall, so to say, for hours and hours and hours. And that's how I got into tennis. We all played soccer at the time, and those were the 2 sports that we were into, and that's how I got introduced to tennis.
So 2 elder brothers. What was the family dynamic like, especially when you started to get good?
Well, obviously, when you're the smallest of 3 kids, everybody says, oh, the youngest has the best life. I cannot agree with that, because you try to basically challenge your older brothers all the time in everything you do. You try to live after what they do and be as good as they are. So they were very important for my career as a kid, because they always challenged me and I always wanted to be better than them. But we were a sporty family. We were a good social family. We loved doing things together. And when I got better, they were not jealous at all. They really were happy for me, and they enjoyed my success, and they still do.
So do you think a part of your own success was the fact that from a very early age you had your 2 brothers as a challenge?
Absolutely. I think having my 2 older brothers in life was a big part of me becoming confident, self-confident, being able to, as a kid, I always wanted the challenge. I always wanted to win. I hated losing in anything. Could be a board game, could be backgammon, could be soccer, could be tennis. It didn't matter what it was. I wanted to be better than my older brothers. My oldest brother is 7 years older than me, so it was not very optimistic to be better than him in anything, but they played a big part in my upcoming and making me the person, also the athlete I became.
Who taught you these strokes, and how good were you at actually learning how to hit a tennis ball?
Well, I think when you grow up, you have your idols. You look tennis and you watch tennis. We always went as a kid to the Hamburg-Rotenbaum tournament and always watched the players like José Gueras, Manuel Orantes, Peter McNamara, who I loved at the time. And you saw those players and you always pick up. You try to play the same forehand like he does or the same backhand. And at the time, everyone played single-handed backhand. So I, wanted to play single-handed backhand. And then you have coaches, and they try to work things out. But I think it's a natural instinct that you pick up a racket and you try to play the shot as good as you can play it. And I learned it the old way, the continental grip, the big loop before you hit the forehand, and that changed over all the years. But I think coaches watching a lot of tennis had the biggest impression.
The reason I ask that is that you had beautiful technique. People enjoyed watching you play. Was that something you had to work on, or were you one of those annoying people who was just good at whatever you tried to do?
I think a lot of things came natural to me, but because I wanted to keep tennis as simple as possible. I learned as a kid, I played double-handed backhand, and after some years I realized, well, if you do that, you have to run extra 2-3 meters every time you play a backhand, and I thought that was stupid. So I thought it's better to play a single-handed backhand and you save time, and you don't have to run so much. So I wanted to keep the game simple. Surf and volley was obviously simple in Germany growing up on clay, slow clay, but also very fast indoor carpet. So we learned both sides of the game. And I loved the game itself, to play tennis and to outplay your opponent, to have a strategy, to have a game plan. That's what I loved.
So how good were you as a junior? When did you start winning tournaments?
I was terrible. I didn't win anything. I became, club champion. I the regional champion in northern Germany. I became champion. I always went to the German junior championship every year, and I never won a round. Neither in the main draw or then you have those loser competitions for the first round losers. I never won a round. And till my last German junior championship when I was 18, when I became German junior champion. And I can't tell you why that happened or what the reason was, but it seemed like before I loved playing tennis, I was talented, but I didn't necessarily only play to win. I played because I loved playing. And it seemed like then I learned that both things have to come together.
Because I was going to say, it begs the question, why did you carry on if you kept losing all these matches? But it was just the love of the game, was it?
Well, it was a love of the game. I love to play drop shots and surf and volley and try shots that no one else did. And at that time, I hated losing. It was not that I didn't want it to win, but my coach at the time, my junior coach, Herbie Horst, South African guy who I owe a lot to as well, he taught me at some stage that it's very much about playing percentage tennis. It's about playing the right shot at the right time to win the point. And he made me, I love playing drop shots, as I said, and he said to me, for every drop shot you play, you have to make 10 kangaroo jumps. And then I thought, well, if I do play too many drop shots, I have to do many of those. So just play them when it's really sensible to play it. And those are the little lessons that you learn when you have a good coach that make the difference.
But if a coach says to a junior who loves being creative on a tennis court, you've got to play the percentages, couldn't that drive out the fun?
Well, he didn't take away the creativity from me at all. He knew that I needed that. It was part of my game, but he basically put me in the right lane. He said to me, well, be creative, but there is a moment when you just have to play for the point. Make it simple. Keep it simple. Make it easy and not just try to be too inventive and you might lose the point. So all those lessons I learned from him, from Niki Pilic, obviously, from Mark Lewis, my then first professional coach, they all directed me into that way of becoming a champion.
So at what stage did you actually start to get a sense you might be world class at this sport?
I never did till I probably won my first tournament in Memphis. I became junior champion in 1986, finished school then, and then Niki Pilic was the one who saw something in me and said to me, well, come to Munich, play team matches for Ifitos Munich, and you come to my academy and we work. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And then I had a lot of luck. I played, I think, one satellite at the time, 2 challengers, won the satellite, won the 2 challengers, and moved from number 500 in the ranking to 120. And I thought, well, that's an easy job. And then obviously you learn that it's not so easy to break into the top 100. And then winning Memphis, my first big tournament in 1990, made me realize if you work hard and you be persistent on and off court, you can achieve more things. And that's when I realized I can beat anyone in the world.
So how did you deal with setbacks when you were a junior and looking to make it as a professional? Do you recall how you dealt with difficult situations?
Well, as I said, losing was nothing I really enjoyed. But it always made me work harder because I knew I could do better. So basically, people normally say when they ask you, how did you cope with the loss? And I always say, well, I learned over my career that dealing with a big win is much harder than to deal with a loss, because the loss you can work on, you can analyze, you can make up for in a way, but to deal with all the surroundings of a big win, with the media, the attention, all that is so much more difficult because you can't deal with it on a tennis court. You have to deal with it aside the court. So losing, I think, makes you a better player over a longer period of time. But in that special moment when it happens, it can be very painful.
You have admitted in a couple of interviews that you behaved quite badly on court as a junior. How and why?
Well, because I didn't want it to lose, and I couldn't understand why I lost. And I was throwing rackets, I was breaking rackets. I didn't give after the match, I didn't shake hands with my opponents. And that's when my father once said to me, well, if you ever do that again, we're not going to let you play tennis anymore. So you have to have those restrictions as well. You have to have that feedback from the outside that your behavior is not okay, it's not acceptable. But it makes you a better person. It makes you understand more about yourself, about the game, about traditions, about rules and all that stuff. And even as a professional, I was a very emotional player. I could behave intensely on the court. But if I had a discussion with the chair umpire, I would walk after the match to the chair umpire and would excuse myself for my behavior. I had the confidence to do that as well, but in that moment of a second, it had to come out.
How old were you when your father threatened to stop having you playing tennis?
Probably 13, 14.
Have you talked about it with him? Did you ever talk about that discussion subsequently?
I think he can't remember, and that's good.
But you sound grateful to him, and yet it's tough love, isn't it?
Well, you have to be grateful because they never push me to become a tennis pro. For my father, when I made the decision at the time, for him it was not a job. You don't become a sports professional. It's nothing you do. He was a classical businessman, and he wanted us to become normal people with normal jobs, so to say. But they never intervened. They let me follow my dreams, and they trusted the people like Niki Pilic extremely, that there was a sense that there was something special, maybe. And as I said, when I started making the decision to become a pro, I gave myself 2 years. And I said, I'll try it for 2 years. If it doesn't work out, I'll go and study medicine. If it works out, I'll keep doing it. And it worked out, and I kept going, so that was good. But you have to be grateful to your parents, because they invested a lot of time, a lot of emotions, a lot of money, obviously. And they just give me the chance to live my dream.
You were a factor on the tennis tour before your formal school education had finished, and yet you insisted on finishing your education. Was that your decision? Was that your parents pushing you?
Well, finishing school was my decision because my two older brothers did their A-level and they finished school. So there was no question for me not to do what the older brothers did. I needed that family security at the time as well. I have all my compatriots who finished school with 16, who went out to become professionals at that age, 16, 17. I would have not been able to go the same way, because with 16 I would have, as a person, not been grown up enough to see the world out there. So family, the backup, the security was extremely important to me, and I think I took the right time and the right moment to then make the decision to become a professional.
Because it sounds, if you carried on to the end of your school career because of what your brothers did, that doesn't sound like following your path. That sounds like following their path.
That was my path because I wanted to be on the same level as they were. It was my decision, saying, it's not that they said, well, if you don't do it, you are not good enough or whatever. It was like, no, I wanted to challenge myself and challenge my brothers to say, like, if you do it, I do it. There's no doubt about it. It's the same thing when I went after my career. I went on and studied a couple of semesters of history of art, because I wanted to give my father the feeling I learned something decent and not just be a tennis pro. But I never finished it, so I'm still not having that piece of paper.
Was there an inferiority complex then about playing tennis?
No, it's something that it's just part of my DNA probably, and it's not. It's more like a fun thing, you know. It's not like I owe him or I need to do this because he expects this of me. It would have been like, I want to surprise you, you know. Finally, after 25 years, I learned something decent. Here's my diploma, but it didn't work out.
Okay, despite the absence of that piece of paper, everyone who knows you knows you're smart, and that includes academic intelligence. But in the world of sport, where you have to be ruthless, can the ability to think, can cerebral intelligence be almost a disadvantage?
I don't think so. It's just a question of what you make with that mental part of your personality, of that part of your personality in general, how you use it for your advantage. And obviously I was friends on the tour with Jim Courier, Richard Krajicek, Wayne Ferreira, all kind of players that look beyond being a tennis professional and who had different interests, and you could talk about different things and not just about forehand and backhand. But on a tennis court, it helped me extremely because I always saw tennis a little bit like a chess game as well. You know, I wanted to find solutions for problems and not just accept the problem, but see how can I adapt to weather, to surroundings, to different surfaces. When you hear the discussions now, people saying, well, the change from clay to grass is so difficult, where I just shake my head. Because it's just a question how you mentally set yourself up for this and how you accept the different surroundings and the different parameters of playing the game, because the game is still the same. You know, it doesn't change. You just have to have a different approach at the time.
A year before you won Wimbledon, you were ranked 400. When you came into Wimbledon, you were ranked 7. What was the big breakthrough in that period leading up to your greatest individual triumph?
Well, I don't know if I was ranked 490 in the beginning, because in I think March I won Memphis, and I was then ranked after Memphis. I think I was ranked in the top 50, honestly. And then the big change was in 91. I went to Australia. I played the finals at Adelaide and Sydney at both preparation events for the Australian Open. And then obviously the breakthrough came with the French Open, playing the semi-finals, realizing all of a sudden I can even perform at a big stage at the Grand Slams. And then going into Wimbledon, I didn't know what to expect. I knew I was good on grass because I think in 1991 I played Queens, which I did well. I lost against Ivan Len in the quarterfinals in 3 sets, close 3 sets. So I knew I was good on grass, but I didn't really think from the first round I was going to win that year. But I wanted to get to the second week. And the change in ranking and self-confidence comes obviously through winning matches and playing against better players and realizing, well, they're just tennis players, you know. You can win whenever you want.
So a lot of players say, I was waiting for the results to come because I knew I was good enough. The way you're talking about it, you almost sound like you surprised yourself by how many top matches you won. Well,
it's, you know, if you expect a lot of yourself, it's tough. What we all do when we go out there, but you have to put yourself in a position to be honest to yourself as well. When you're not well prepared, you're not going to have good results. Maybe by luck, but not just because you worked hard enough. But if you put a lot of hard work in and you want to become a better player every day, and that was my goal, to become a better player every time I practice. I want to improve. I wanted to learn. I wanted to evolve as a tennis player on court. And if you have that, I truly believe in any job in the world, if you have that attitude, you become good at what you do. But you need to be able to accept defeat as well, which plays a big part in this game as well. If defeat pulls you down, it's tough to come back up again all the time. You have to accept defeat as something that is part of the job and not something to be whining about all the time or complaining or whatever. Accept it, be upset, move on.
The Wimbledon that you won, you beat Jim Courier in the quarterfinals, which perhaps wasn't a surprise given that he was much less of a player on grass than he was on clay at the time. You then beat Stefan Edberg in the semi-finals. There was one break of serve. It didn't go to you. Your serve was broken in the first set. And yet you played a remarkable second, third and fourth sets, winning all of them on the tiebreak. Do you remember what was going through your mind through that match?
33 years ago, tough to recall, but I knew that I always liked playing Stefan. I liked his game because he kept serving to my backhand, which was my best return on that surface anyway. He didn't really look for my weaknesses too much. But in that year, and I looked up parts of the match now over the last couple of years, and in that year, he didn't make any errors at the net. You couldn't get past him. You couldn't just get a passing shot wherever you wanted to go. He was there. So I knew when I lost the first set, it was a possibility I had to go through the tiebreaks. And in the tiebreaks, I was lucky enough, he made, in 2 out of 3 of them, he made errors he probably never made before, never made after again. He missed it, an overhead, completely missed it. And the other tiebreak, I think he made 1 or 2 double faults, and it went my way. But I never believed I would lose. I always had the belief I was going to win that match. And if you don't have that, that makes a difference of 1 short 5 seconds of a doubt, you're not going to win.
Do you know where that belief came from?
Because I always believe in myself. I never doubt myself. I have that confidence, and I know that I can do anything I want, but I know what I'm not capable of doing, which is extremely important. I would never say something I'm good at, whatever, doing, like producing a TV movie. I would say, like, I have no clue about producing a TV movie, so I'm not going to do it. But once I start doing things, I really put my heart to it, I'm confident that I'm good at it. And I think you need that confidence. And as I said before, I have never had a problem with accepting defeat or not being successful in what you do as part of being confident.
And so in the final against Becker and Edberg had played the previous 3 Wimbledon finals, so he was a favourite sort of almost by default. Did that help you, or were you not thinking about him, or what?
I didn't think about it at all. For me, it was not important who I play in the finals because it was just the Wimbledon finals. I would have played against Eddie, the short guy who carried out the bags. It wouldn't have made a difference as long as I win. And obviously it was made big by the media, understandably, but for me it was just a match, and I had to play the match to win, and I was very confident before the match I was going to win. I felt great. Mark Lewis did a great job in preparing me for the match, and through those 2 weeks to really show me the belief he had in me, which is very important, that your team shows you that belief and gives you the sense of you're going to win, and I had the belief myself. I know that Mark Lewis said to me, more or less like, you're going to be good, and you're going to, you're going to try to win this match. And I looked at him and I said, trust me, I'm not going to lose this match.
Have you looked back at the tape of the final?
In parts, yes.
I mean, pretty much everything you touched turned to gold in that final.
Well, if you look at the Wimbledon matches from those days, it's less tennis, obviously, than you have today. It was short points, it was a lot of serving, and if the return came back, it was volleying. There were not a lot of longer rallies. But if you look at the match, the important longer rallies at crucial points of the match, most of them I won. And those were the points that, for your opponent, they sink even more in. A great passing shot you can accept. But if you hit 3-4 times and you come to the net and Boris slipped at one point and you then put the passing shot, that's something that sticks with your opponent because you don't want to lose those points. Get an ace, you get an ace. But I read his game quite well, and I was good on that day.
When you have the moment of triumph, is there ever a point where you say, yeah, those really difficult moments X number of years ago were worth working through? Was there a sense of that when you won Wimbledon, that various sacrifices had all been worth it?
No, never at all. Because at that time I'm still not and never was someone who looks back too far, because it's part of your life, but it's history. You can't change it anyway. It doesn't make sense to think about it too much. And at that time, it was just like I knew that I was putting all the hard work in because I had goals. I had my, so to say, bucket list at some stage of things I wanted to achieve. And you give it the best you can to achieve those things. And if you don't, you have to accept that you were not good enough. Again, it's part of the deal. But as long as you believe in yourself, I think you can achieve much more than people sometimes think they can.
You're making a Wimbledon final sound almost like just another match.
Well, when you play it, it is. And I know, I've spoken to other players that said, like Patrick Kühnen, obviously one of my closest friends, said when he walked on center court and he played the quarterfinals there once, he said, like, I was shaking. I was just overwhelmed by the court itself. And for me, it was like, yes, read Rudyard Kipling, if you meet triumph and disaster, and treat those two imposters just the same. Very touching. It's still up to now. But then you walk out there and say it's a tennis court. It's a tennis match. It has lines, and it has a judge, a chair umpire, and you got to play. And I think that's part of some players, the big ones anyway, and they're much more successful than I ever was. They have that. They work on it. They have maybe a special gift to deal with situations like that. But one thing they all have in common, they're not afraid of losing. And that's the difference in a tennis match. You have to go out to win and play to win and not play not to lose. And that's a big difference.
Have you read the rest of the Rudyard Kipling poem? People quote those two lines because they're written above the entrance to centre court. But do you know the last line?
I did read it once, but I don't know the whole poem.
I mean, the significance is the last line, because every line begins with if, except the last one, which says, then the world will be yours and all that's in it, and what is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Okay.
Obviously written in a more patriarchal era, but if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, you'll be a man.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you more in retrospect?
Well, it does, because at the time for me it was like when I read those lines and walked on center court, for me it was like, well, you're only allowed to play on this court if you accept defeat, success. You have to respect the crowd, you have to respect the line judges, you have to respect the chair umpire, which you not always do, but only then you're allowed to play on this court. If you don't follow those rules, you shouldn't be here. And that, for me, still is the same. Some players have not understood that from my point of view, but you have to walk off court in defeat and just accept it. You just have to be still respectful.
You came back to Wimbledon as the champion a year later, 92, and you ran into Fred Perry, who had some interesting words for you.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories, obviously. I went to the locker room, and Fred Perry was there, and obviously I knew who Fred Perry was. And he came up to me and he shook my hand and hold my hand for about 5 minutes and gave me a speech about how much he liked my game and the way I did it last year, and it was great to see. And I reminded him of Gottfried von Crum, the way I play, so fluent. And I was like, what do you say? Like, athletes normally speak themselves with the first name, Fred. I said, no, that's Mr. Perry. You have to address him as Mr. Perry. But then as a young player, you feel like, yeah, you can let go of my hand now. It's okay now. But over the years, it happened every year again. And I think Fred Perry died in 95.
Yeah. But 94 was his last Wimbledon.
So in 95, I came to the locker room, and he wasn't there. And I didn't get the speech. I didn't get those 5 minutes, so to say. And just then I realized how much it meant to me that he did it when it didn't happen again anymore. So, and sometimes you want to tell those young players, just really cherish it at the time when it happens and not wait for the moment when it is not there anymore. But still, and I remember that his daughter, I think, sent me a letter. She approached me the year after, I think, and she just told me how much her father just really enjoyed those talks and my game and so on. It's still very nice.
In 1992, you won two very impressive doubles titles, Wimbledon with John McEnroe and the Olympics with Boris Becker. Now, they say that two top stars don't always make the best team. How did you deal with two very, very high-octane, charismatic doubles partners?
Well, Wimbledon was very special because John came up and asked me. He had a reason to do so, and I thought, if you can play doubles with John McEnroe, you should not say no. Obviously something that you would dream of, and he would not ask everyone. But a funny story was we played a pre-preparation event in Rosmalen in Holland at the time, and we played doubles together to get ready, and we played singles against each other in the semifinals. And we got a little bit into discussions and into a row on court, because John behaved the way he did, and I told him that I don't appreciate it, and so on. And then after that match, he came to me and said he doesn't think if it's a good idea if we play doubles if I behave like that against him in a singles match. And I looked at him and I said, John, you behaved like a complete idiot. I just showed you the mirror, but that's what it is. It's a tennis match, and we're good in doubles, so let's just not throw this overboard. And then we decided we'll do it, and he just, I think he respected us when someone confronted him and not just, gave way and said, okay, you're John McEnroe, you can do whatever you want. And I really loved it, and Wimbledon was great. We peaked at different matches at different times, and I enjoyed the time with him and to play with him and winning it at the end. At his last Wimbledon, I always wanted to win a Grand Slam doubles title, so we both got the best out of it.
So you stood up to McEnroe. Did you ever have to stand up to Becker?
Well, sure I did, but that was different because everybody expected us to be good friends, being compatriots and coming from the same country. And I always try to explain people that, especially because of those reasons, there's no reason to be good friends, and we were, opponents, and we wanted to be better than the other. But at the Olympics, we were able, and that shows how much professionals we were. Besides personality differences and everything we had, we knew that to win a medal after we both lost in singles quite early, the only chance to win a medal if we would perform as a team and put everything aside and just put the professional view on winning a medal, and not the gold, but in general a medal. And we both did it. Niki Pilic did a great job at the time. Boris lived outside the Olympic Village. I lived in the village, so we only saw each other at the practice site and for the matches. But Niki was great, and the gold medal is a big part of his success. But we were professional enough to do that, and I think we both cherished that success and that win extremely.
You won the Davis Cup for the newly unified Germany in 1993, pretty much single-handed. I don't want to deny the contributions of Mark Kevin Goellner and Patrick Kunin, but you played pretty much every live match. What did that mean to you?
It was winning the Davis Cup was one of the things I had on my bucket list. I think Davis Cup at the time was one of the most important team events in the world in any kind of sport, the most traditional one. And obviously I grew up watching Davis Cup as a kid. That was always on television. I wanted to win that Davis Cup. Being part of a team, being successful was extremely important to me. And I won every team competition that existed in Germany. I won the World Team Cup. I won the King's Cup at the time. You might still remember the King's Cup.
I do.
I won in Australia the Hopman Cup with Steffi together. I won the German Bundesliga team competition. So team competitions were, as an individual sports person, extremely important. And Davis Cup, obviously, top of the list.
You reached 3 Grand Slam finals. You won Wimbledon. You lost in the finals of US Open and Roland Garros. 3 finals on 3 different surfaces. Do you look back on that and say that is a great haul, or do you sometimes think there could have been more?
Yes, there could have been more. Biggest disappointment was the French Open final. Still is. I think the worst defeat I had in my whole career.
Why?
Not so
Why?
much. Well, not so much because of that story of winning Wimbledon and the French, and being such a all-court player, whatever. I mean, I think I've proven that I won 2 years on all surfaces as one of, I think I was probably the only player in the 90s who did that in 1 year. But because of the French, of the story, being injured, coming back, having no expectations in 96, coming back of nearly 7.5 months of injury, and just enjoying tennis as much as I did when I started playing, and having that feeling of it's a great game, it was back to the roots somehow. And then going to the finals, and I didn't expect me to win. I played round by round, and the only reason I lost that final was because in the locker room before the finals, I thought 5 seconds about being able to win the French Open. And those 5 seconds thinking that made me lose that match. And that, sorry when I say that, still pisses me off.
So would you have preferred to have had the mental discipline not to have thought about that? Or is that just the kind of thing that any human being would think in those circumstances?
Well, probably anyone would think that, but for me it was like, because I was just enjoying playing so much in that championship, and I played round by round. I beat Thomas Muster round of 16, then Cédric Pioline, Marc Rosset. I just played great tennis, and all court tennis, surf and volley. It was very hot that year, and that thought itself was not so bad, but it took that feeling light away from me, feeling just enjoying playing tennis. It was combined with an expectation all of a sudden. And that expectation just took 5% away of my game probably. I still was up a break in the first, a double break in the second, and a break in the third. And I lost in 3 sets. So I should have won that match anyway. So I think that I really lost that match, and Yevgeny Kafelnikov didn't win it, and that upsets me the most.
Post-playing career, you have done an awful lot of work for HIV and AIDS. You've also discovered your artistic skills as a painter. In some respects, do you wish you had done some of that, both the painting and the charity work, more when you were a player? Would that have made you a different player, or is that just a question of giving back now that the playing career is over?
Well, I started my foundation when I was a player. So in '94, I set up the foundation in the middle of my career, wanting to give back, but also knowing when I will retire at some stage, then real life will start, and I have something I could really work with. I can, put my focus on. Painting, I started collecting during my active time, and I really loved art at the time from the buying side and collecting side. And painting started straight after I finished my career, more or less. And I there's a time for everything in life, and I think I've picked the right moments for everything I did, and I wouldn't do it differently. So I think some things have to fall into place as they do, and you have to accept it that way.
In 2018, you were inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame. You were very emotional in your induction speech. What did that mean to you?
Well, I know that my former manager, Ken Myers, and you still remember, who died
a long time ago.
Way too early, let's say. And he was the one, as an American, who wanted me so badly in the Hall of Fame. And I know that I've been on a list once or twice before, and I didn't get inducted. And I was completely surprised in 2018 when it happened, because it was my last year, so to say, when I had the chance to be inducted. And you realize just now, when you're done, when you're over with your career, that the International Tennis Hall of Fame is a great institution that preserves our game, the history of our game, just the legends and everyone and everything that is there. And for that reason, it was such a treat of respect, and also for my achievement, and not just for the tennis achievement, but for me as a person, that I was inducted, that it was a thing I would have not expected.
We've spent a lot of this interview talking about your junior days. What advice are you comfortable giving juniors today? Not just juniors, but also the parents of good juniors.
Well, if you commit to being an athlete, and if you're 12, 13, 14 years old, you're not a tennis pro, you're just finding your way of what you like and what you don't. I always tell parents with younger kids, let them enjoy sports. Any kind of sports just is going to improve your mobility, your way of moving, and all those kind of things, and not just focus on one sport. Play different sports. Once you found your sport, just accept that if you really want to be good, you have to work hard, and you have to put all the time in, and you have to have sacrifice and accept sacrifice. As long as you love it, what you do, it's not a sacrifice, because you're not going to miss it, because you do it for a reason, and for a good reason. And the way to the top is extremely difficult. It's hard, and out of 1,000, maybe one is going to achieve something special. But if you don't try it, you're never going to find out. So just give it a shot. And
to parents?
Well, if you're willing to support your kid, do it. You have the chances, time-wise, financially. Just do it, but you have to accept a lot of tough moments that are not easy to deal with the kid itself, but also with the path the kid is going to take. So you have to be very, very humble, and you have to accept a lot of things.
So you never studied medicine, you never got your diploma in history of art, but when you look back on your career, are you satisfied with the package? Absolutely.
I would have never dreamed of it. Would have loved to win a second Grand Slam. That's the one thing that stands out. The rest, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Michael Stich, thank you very much for sharing your recollections.
You're welcome.
The 1991 Wimbledon champion, 94 US Open runner-up and 96 Roland Garros runner-up, Michael Stich, or Michael Stich if you prefer. And central to his success was that preparedness to lose, not a wish to lose, but an acceptance that losing is part of the game, and not being scared to lose. There's a lesson for all walks of life in there. And he's another example of how being a champion involves a strange combination of intense confidence, but genuine humility too. I hope you enjoyed that interview, and there are plenty more in the Tennis Worthy podcast series. Do tell your friends about them. There are plenty of good topics in these interviews for chats over a drink in the tennis club bar. You've been listening to the Tennis Worthy podcast, which is brought to you by the International Tennis Hall of Fame in association with the Tennis Radio Network. I'm Chris Bowers, thanks for listening, and join us again for more in-depth interviews with the legends of tennis.